I want to thank the senator from Connecticut, Chris Murphy, and the senior senator from Connecticut as well. I do want to echo his really spirit in the deference he gave to Senator Barbara Mikulski and Senator Shelby. Both of these two senators are people I respect a tremendous amount. In fact, I would go beyond that with Senator Shelby and Senator Mikulski because I have a deep affection for them both. They are great, strong legislators, and they have produced legislation that is important to this country. I have a reverence for their work, the attention to detail and the focus they have done preparing legislation to move forward. And I ask for indulgence from them to understand why I stand on the floor today preparing to ask a question to Senator Murphy. Senator Murphy and I last night talked about the tragedy that happened in Florida. It was painful to both of us because we knew that this was not in any way an anomaly, that this was something happening with terrible, savage routine. That in this nation we are seeing mass killing after mass killing after mass killing after mass killing. And we both understood that our nation right now, as with other of our colleagues, stands at a point of vulnerability to those who seek to do us harm, those who seek to inflict terror, those who seek to inflict grievous bodily harm, those who seek to kill Americans, that they have the ability to exploit loopholes in order to have access to weapons. And so I stand here today in preparation to ask a question to Senator Murphy, wanting to say that the motivation for his presence on the floor right now is that we just can't go on with business as usual in this body at a time where there is such continued grievous threat and vulnerability to our country, where you see again and again mass shooting after mass shooting. There's a saying that the only thing necessary for evil to be triumphant is for good people to do nothing. I'm grateful to Senator Murphy for his conviction in our conversations yesterday and into the night that we could not just go along with business as usual. We had had enough. That we had to push this body to come to some consensus on that which the overwhelming majority of Americans, indeed the overwhelming majority of gun owners in this country, indeed the overwhelming majority of NRA members in this country believe we should put forth common sense safety measures to protect against terrorists obtaining firearms to inflict the kind of carnage we have seen too often in this country and in others. And please understand, while many people imagine that when terrorists act, they act with bombs, more and more across the globe, across the United States, they are acting with assault weapons and firearms. And so we are here today to say enough. I've cleared my entire day. This will not be business as usual. I cleared my evening events so that I could stay on this floor and support Senator Murphy as he pushes this body to come to some consensus in the way that the country has already done, that there are common sense, practical ways that we can protect this nation from terrorism. And please understand, the Constitution of this country begins with this understanding that the primary responsibility of this nation is about the common defense. It says in our preamble that we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America, written there in plain English. The Constitution which laid out our very form of government in which this body stands, put in its clear English at the beginning that we are to focus on domestic tranquility, the common defense, the general welfare. And so we cannot go on with business as usual in this body. We must stand because this violence in our country will continue unless we take measures, common sense measures, to restrict these firearms going to known or suspected terrorists. I believe that this is a day that should not be business as usual. I believe that this should be a day that this body comes together like it has before to put forth common sense safety measures to prevent terrorism. Paraphrase on one of our great leaders. Martin Luther King said, "What we will have to repent for in this day and age is not just the vitriolic words and violent actions of the bad people, but the appalling silence and inaction of the good people." That's why I stand now to ask a question to the senator. That's why I will stay on this floor with my colleague from Connecticut, support him in this effort to move this body to put forth the common sense steps we should take to prevent weapons from getting into the hands of our enemy, to getting in the hands of terrorists, to getting in the hands of people who seek to wreak the kind of carnage that our nation tragically witnessed this past weekend. The senator from Connecticut, my colleague and friend, went through the unforgettable lists of mass shootings in Newtown, 20 school children and 6 employees killed. Santa Monica, 5 Americans killed. In Washington, D.C., here at the Naval Yard, 12 people killed. In Fort Hood, 3 people killed. Isla Vista, California, 6 people killed. Marysville, Washington, 4 people killed in a high school cafeteria. Charleston, South Carolina, 9 people at a church killed. Chattanooga, Tennessee, at a military recruiting office, 4 Marines and a naval petty officer killed. Roseburg, Oregon, 10 people killed at a local community college. Colorado Springs, Colorado, 3 people killed at a Planned Parenthood clinic. In San Bernardino, in an act of terrorism, 14 people killed. In Orlando, this past weekend, this Saturday night, 49 innocent people murdered, killed. And so I rise to ask Senator Murphy a question because there is a question on the hearts and minds of the majority of the people of our nation. They're asking the question, how long will this go on? They're asking the question, how can we be a nation so mighty and great, yet hold this distinction on the planet Earth where these kind of mass killings go on at a rate at a level nowhere else seen on the planet Earth. It is here in this country, founded on the idea that we form this government for our common defense, that we form this government to ensure domestic tranquility, that we form this government based on the idea that we can make for a safer, stronger, and more prosperous land. That question is being asked from coast to coast, from north to south. And Senator Murphy and I talked yesterday about coming to the floor today and not letting business as usual happen. So we talked with our other colleagues who will come to this floor today, who all have in their hearts that word enough, enough, enough. What we are seeking is not radical. What we're seeking is not something that is partisan. What we're seeking is common sense that is supported by the overwhelming majority of this nation. Study after study, poll after poll, survey after survey of gun owners, of people who have weapons, who take to heart their Second Amendment rights. When you ask them, what should we do? Do you support closing the terrorist loophole, creating practical, common sense bars for people that are suspected of terrorism from buying a gun? 82% of gun owners say, yes, we should do that. They say enough.
President, humbly, I raise a point of order about whether there's a question. I'd like to ask a question.
The senator from Connecticut may yield for a question only without losing his rights.
And Mr. President, I have a question, but I think that I can have a preamble to my question to set the context of the question.
Ask the question.
Ask the question.
That's
Okay.
the question of the chair.
The question I'd like to ask is, given the fact that the overwhelming majority of Americans support common sense gun legislation, given the fact that 82% of gun owners support closing the terrorist loophole, given the fact that 75% of NRA members support closing the terrorist loophole, my question for the senator of Connecticut is, why does he feel that this body is not moving on common sense legislation that will protect our nation, that will defend us against terrorists, that will prevent tragedies like in Orlando happening? I direct my question to the senator from Connecticut.